I have seen what happens when someone has carried too much for too long. I have lived it. At some point, you finally sit down. It might be on a bed, a bus seat, or the cold floor of a bathroom. The place does not matter. What matters is what is happening inside. You do not sit because your body is tired. You sit because something in you quietly gives way, like a bridge that has been holding more weight than it was ever built to handle. If you have ever been there, even once, you know it does not happen with noise or drama. Nothing crashes. Nothing explodes. It just bends. It folds in on itself. It is the kind of moment where your heart seems to whisper, I cannot carry all of this at the same time anymore. People who have lived through too much understand that moment in a way others never will. The strange part is that you usually do not realize you have become one of those people until life forces you to see it. Someone looks at you and asks why you stay so calm about things that would shake anyone else. And you do not know how to explain that it is not calm. It is not peace. It is a quiet numbness that shows up when your mind has been stretched far past what it was meant to hold. It is the stillness that comes after your emotions have run too many long races without rest. Most people think resilience is about strength. But for someone who has been through too much, resilience feels more like instinct. It is something you do because there was no other option. Because of that, you carry a certain kind of inner wiring that other people can feel, even if they cannot put words to it. There is weight in how you look at the world. There is depth behind your eyes. There is softness in the way you listen, and a heaviness in the pause you take before you answer. You learn how to fold your emotions into tight shapes so they fit into the corners of your mind. You learn how to keep moving even when everything inside you feels like a storm. There is something almost strange about that contradiction. People who have been through too much often look wise, steady, mature, thoughtful. They seem like the ones who have everything under control. But if anyone could step inside their inner world, even for a moment, they would see that this maturity was not something gently earned over time. It was forced. It was pulled out under pressure. It was not chosen. It was required. Some people grow because they are supported and protected. Others grow because life refuses to give them the kind of childhood or youth that seems normal to everyone else. When you carry more emotional weight than your body and mind were ever designed to hold, it changes how your mind shapes itself. Psychologists talk about this as emotional overcompensation, at least in part. When the nervous system gets overwhelmed again and again, it does not stay the same. It reorganizes. Not in a smooth or elegant way, but in a desperate one. It adapts by becoming hyper aware. It adapts by staying emotionally braced. It adapts by expecting the worst even when danger is not actually present. If you have ever wondered why you overthink everything, why you notice small shifts in tone, or why you prepare for problems that have not even happened yet, this is the reason. Your mind learned early on that uncertainty was risky. So it built defenses you never consciously asked for. Even when healing happens, even when growth begins, parts of those defenses remain. They sit there like old foundations under a remodeled building. People who have been through too much carry an invisible education with them. They know how to read silence. They sense tension before anyone else does. They move around conflict the way someone carefully steps around broken glass. They know how to calm other people while their own heart is shaking. They know how to shrink themselves when attention feels unsafe. They learn how to recover quickly from disappointment because life never gave them the option to fully fall apart. Over time, they develop emotional reflexes that other people mistake for personality. But those are not personality traits. They are survival traits. They are learned responses. They are automatic scripts written into the nervous system. And very often they start early. Research in developmental psychology shows that when a person lives through long periods of stress, uncertainty, or emotional overload, the brain adjusts. It becomes more alert to danger, more reactive to small signals, more focused on patterns that other people do not notice. People often call this intuition. But for many of us, it is not intuition. It is pattern recognition learned because it had to be. There is a tenderness in people who have been through too much. There is a gentleness that comes from knowing pain firsthand, not as an idea, but as lived reality. That tenderness is often mistaken for weakness. But if you have carried heavy things, you know better. Over time, I became the kind of person who knows how to comfort others without even thinking about it. It comes so naturally that people assume I must have been comforted the same way. The truth is, I was not. I learned how to understand other people because I was forced to understand myself in ways most folks never have to. I know how to offer warmth because I lived through long seasons of emotional cold. I know how to hold space for someone because there were times when no one held it for me. But behind all that care and empathy, there is something else most people never see: exhaustion. Not the kind of tiredness you show on the outside, not the kind that makes you yawn or slow down. It is the quiet exhaustion you carry by yourself, the kind that does not push you to rest but pulls you inward, the kind that sleep cannot fix, the kind that only eases when someone truly understands you. I became someone who can carry almost anything except myself, someone who knows how to support others but freezes when it comes to asking for help, someone who offers clarity to everyone else while living with unanswered questions of my own. That does not happen because I do not trust people. It happens because my mind learned early that depending on someone else was unpredictable. And for someone who has been through too much, unpredictability feels like the first step toward everything falling apart again. People often ask why those who have suffered a lot become so emotionally independent that they seem isolated. But that independence is not confidence. It is protection. It is armor. It is the safest choice in a world that has felt unsafe too many times. So I learned how to calm myself, analyze myself, correct myself, and carry myself. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. And that creates a split. On the outside, people see someone capable, steady, grounded. On the inside, there is someone tired, sensitive, quietly overwhelmed. Living with that contrast changes the way your mind works. You get used to emotional opposites existing at the same time. You can be open and guarded, caring and distant, fully present yet holding part of yourself back. You can feel hopeful and cautious in the same breath, emotionally deep, but careful about what you show. People who have been through too much do not avoid vulnerability because they dislike it. They avoid it because vulnerability has come with consequences before: disappointment, being misunderstood, emotional chaos. They learn early that vulnerability is not always shared. Sometimes it is a risk. Because of that, they open up slowly, carefully, on purpose. They reveal themselves in layers, not to control others, but to protect themselves. And here is the truth almost no one tells them: there is nothing broken about them. Their reactions make sense, their caution makes sense, their depth makes sense. Psychological adaptation is not a defect, it is a response to what life demanded. The mind tells stories, and when someone has lived through too many hard chapters, that story becomes more complex. Their emotions gain layers. Their inner world fills with meanings that others cannot see. Despite everything, there is something deeply beautiful about people who have been through too much. They often love quietly but with real depth. They value small acts of kindness more than big displays. They notice details others miss. They treasure calm moments because they know what chaos feels like. They value emotional honesty because they have seen what pretending costs. And one of the most remarkable things about them is this: they keep going. Even when their heart feels heavy, even when their mind feels worn down, even when the future feels uncertain, they continue. Not because they cannot break, but because they already have. And they found a way to stand again. There's a kind of wisdom that only comes from surviving yourself, a kind of maturity that comes from navigating emotions without a guide, a kind of self awareness that grows when you are forced to decode your own inner world. People who have lived through too much carry all of this inside them, like quiet chapters of a book they never plan to write. But there is one part most people never notice. Beneath all the survival instincts, the emotional reflexes, the maturity, and the depth, there is still a part of them that wishes life had been easier. Not perfect, just gentler. A version of life where they did not have to grow up so fast. A version where their nervous system did not learn to brace for impact. a version where they did not always have to be the strong one. And still, without that easier version of life, they move forward. They show up. They carry wisdom that feels older than their years. They turn experience into understanding, lessons into compassion, pain into depth, struggle into a quiet kind of strength. Because people who have been through too much do not just survive life, they interpret it, they examine it, they reflect on it, and they turn what they lived through into insight. I turn my emotions into meaning. I turn what I have lived through into perspective. And somewhere in that process, even if I never fully notice it myself, I become a kind of light for other people. I become the person others come to when they need honesty, steadiness, or clear thinking. I am the one who listens without judging, the one who understands without needing every detail filled in. That is because I know what it feels like to carry something you cannot explain. I know what it is like to hold emotions that do not have words yet. I know the feeling of wanting someone to understand without forcing yourself to relive the whole story out loud. That is where this way of thinking stops being just a result of my past and starts becoming something useful to the world. There is a quiet moment, easy to miss, when someone who has been through too much starts to notice they see life differently than others. It does not arrive all at once. It shows up slowly through small realizations. I notice that things which send other people into panic barely move me. I notice that moments that make others feel excited or thrilled land softly in my chest, almost muted. I notice that my mind is always a step or two ahead. I'm thinking through possibilities, preparing for outcomes, bracing for emotional waves before they even form. At first, I think this means something is wrong with me. But over time, I learn that this difference is simply what remains after carrying so much for so long. People who have lived through too much form a strange relationship with reality. It is close and distant at the same time. On one side, I feel everything deeply, sometimes more deeply than I would like. On the other side, I know how to pull back when that depth becomes too much. This ability to feel and detach at the same time is not taught. The mind builds it on its own as a survival structure. It is a way to balance emotional intensity with emotional protection. Psychologists sometimes describe this as emotional duality. It means I can feel empathy while hiding vulnerability. I can appear calm while dealing with storms inside. I can function while carrying weight others never see. This inner split shapes how I move through life in ways I barely notice. I hesitate before happiness. I examine comfort before I trust it. Even when things are going well, a quiet part of me asks, is this real? Not because I expect the worst, but because my brain learned a pattern early on. Good moments were often followed by hard ones. And even when life changes, even when circumstances improve, the nervous system does not forget easily. It still prepares for the fall, even when the ground feels steady. This can make relationships complicated, not because I do not care, but because I care deeply. And that depth can be frightening. I worry about losing people before they fully arrive. I imagine endings before beginnings have time to settle. I apologize too fast. I forgive too quickly. I stay quiet about what I need because I do not want to feel like a burden. I listen more than I talk. I give more than I take. And when someone finally asks me what I need, I honestly do not know how to answer. I was never taught how to think about my own needs without feeling guilty. People who have been through too much develop a different kind of love. It is steady. It is intense. It is quietly loyal but careful. I do not love recklessly. But when I love with a sincerity that feels rare now. I notice the small details. I hear the emotion underneath someone's words. I sense pain before it is spoken. I show up in ways others overlook. But that sincerity has a cost. I am easily hurt, not by cruelty, but by carelessness, not by open hostility, but by inconsistency. Inconsistency feels like the start of abandonment, and abandonment, even in subtle forms, wakes up old memories stored in the nervous system. This is what many people do not understand. When someone who has been through too much reacts strongly to something small, they are not reacting only to the present moment. They are responding to the echo of many past moments where they felt unsafe, unsupported, unheard, or unseen. The body reacts to patterns even when the present situation is harmless. Emotions shift based on connections formed long before there were words to describe them. Instead of explaining all this, I stay quiet. I hide my triggers. I cover my anxiety. I smile through discomfort. I choose harmony even when my own heart feels unsettled. I do this because I'm afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of being called too sensitive or too emotional. So I keep my storms private. And here's the irony: the very people who do this are often the emotional anchors for everyone else. They are the ones who bring clarity, perspective, and meaning when others feel lost. I am the one people come to when they are carrying their deepest fears and their rawest emotions. Friends sit with me and open up in ways they do not with others, and I hold what they bring gently with care without judging them. I do that because I understand. I understand in ways that are hard to explain. I lived through things that forced me to learn emotional language long before I was ready for it. That early emotional education gave me a strange kind of awareness. I can see through masks. I can tell when someone is pretending. I can feel tension in conversations that everyone else thinks are normal. I can hear the difference between I am fine and I am not okay. I notice emotional shifts the way a sensitive instrument picks up tiny changes in sound. That ability is both a gift and a weight. It is a gift because it lets me connect deeply with people. It is a burden because I start feeling responsible for emotions that are not mine. I take in too much. I carry too much. Without realizing it, I become a healer. And healers, if they are not careful, get worn down. That exhaustion does not show up in dramatic ways. It appears quietly. Someone who has been through too much will not always say they are overwhelmed. Instead, they get quieter. Their messages shorten, their laughter softens, their presence grows lighter, almost like they are slowly fading, trying not to worry anyone. And when someone asks if they are okay, they smile and say they are fine. Not because they are lying on purpose, but because they do not know how to explain everything moving inside them. They do not want to feel like a burden. They do not want to be misunderstood. They do not want to relive the pain by putting it into words. So they keep it inside. But there is another side to people like this, a kind of strength most people do not recognize. Not loud strength, not obvious strength, quiet strength, the kind that lasts, the kind that keeps going even when everything feels heavy, the kind that continues to show up for life, even when life did not show up for them. They have lived through too many emotional winters to be afraid of the cold. They have walked through storms without protection. They have rebuilt themselves from wreckage more than once. And that gives them something rare: inner resilience. Not the kind of resilience that looks impressive, the kind that looks ordinary. The resilience to wake up again, to try again, to trust again, to love again, even when it scares them, even when they have been hurt, even when their mind tells them it would be safer to stay guarded. Because deep down, people who have been through too much still want connection. They still want to be understood. They still long for softness. They still imagine a life where they do not have to be strong all the time. And it is that hope, small and quiet but persistent, that keeps them moving forward. But hope alone is not what shapes who they become. What truly shapes them is how they think about what they lived through. They do not just experience pain, they study it. They reflect on it. They turn it into understanding. They search for meaning even in painful memories. They find lessons in loss, clarity in chaos, growth in heartbreak. And this creates a way of seeing the world that is both fragile and powerful. Fragile because it comes from real wounds. Powerful because it creates real wisdom. Wisdom that makes them patient. Wisdom that makes them compassionate. Wisdom that allows them to see life from angles others never notice. They understand that people are complicated, that emotions have layers, that everyone is carrying a story. This understanding makes them forgiving, not because they are weak, but because they understand. They know people often act from their own wounds. They know pain can spread when it is not healed. They know healing is not a straight line. They know boundaries matter, but compassion matters too. And there's one more part of their inner world that often goes unseen. They carry quiet grief, not always grief for someone they lost, but grief for who they used to be. The version of themselves who trusted easily, the version who felt light and carefree, the version who was not afraid of uncertainty, the version who believed things would work out without constant preparation. This grief does not destroy them, but it shapes them. It makes them quieter, more thoughtful, more intentional, more inward. It makes them treasure things others rush past. A calm morning, a real conversation, a gentle touch, a presence that feels safe. These moments feel sacred to them because they remember times when nothing felt safe at all. And yet, despite everything, they keep growing, slowly, quietly, in ways others may not see. They learn boundaries, they learn self worth, they learn emotional regulation, they learn to differentiate between instinct and trauma. They learn to open up again, not recklessly, but courageously, because people who have gone through too much are not defined by what happened to them. They are defined by what they chose to become after it. They carry scars, but they also carry wisdom. They carry pain, but they also carry compassion. They carry memories, but they also carry hope. And the more they understand their own psychology, the more they realize something liberating. They are not fragile. They are not weak. They are not damaged. They are adaptive. They are insightful. They are emotionally complex in a world that often prefers simplicity. They are sensitive in a world that often rewards numbness. They are thoughtful in a world that often embraces impulsivity. Their mind is not a battlefield. It is a testament to everything they survived, a testament to everything they learned, a testament to the depth that can grow inside a person when life has refused to be gentle. And maybe the most beautiful truth of all is this: any person who has gone through too much has the potential to become a lighthouse. Not because they're perfect, but because they know darkness. Not because they always shine, but because they understand how terrifying it is to be lost. And in understanding that, they become the kind of person whose presence feels like guidance, the kind of person who can offer warmth without asking for anything in return, the kind of person who turns pain into perspective and perspective into wisdom. They are the quiet ones who learn to live deeply, who learn to love slowly but fully, who learn to trust cautiously but meaningfully, who learn to rebuild themselves until their inner world becomes a place they can finally feel safe in. And if you're one of those people, if you've lived through too much, felt too much, carried too much, then maybe it's time you realize this. Everything you became wasn't accidental. It wasn't random. It wasn't weakness. It was adaptation. It was intelligence. It was emotional evolution. And now, even if you don't see it yet, you have become someone who is capable of creating a future far gentler than your past. Someone who can break old cycles. Someone who can build new emotional habits. Someone who can choose softness without fear. Someone who can choose love without losing themselves. Someone who can choose a life where strength is no longer a survival instinct, but a conscious, peaceful expression of who you are becoming. You didn't just go through too much. You grew through it. And that growth, even if it came from pain, is now your quiet power. Don't forget subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications.